would you like to start? Just
Okay.
saying how you
Okay, so the gauntlet has been laid. I am a little nervous about this, but now it has come to our attention that you should ask me a question. I have not been prepared on this. I don't know what he's going to ask, and I'm slightly nervous.
It's a softball. It's actually, so we talked a lot about deployment pathway and ideal deployment state at something like in our large academic center, right? So if you had this BAC score and the ability to loop it in to EHR records and the ability to cross-reference and weed out patients that don't qualify and then get a research coordinator to call and make sure, and then and only then do the referral to the primary care provider who then makes the decision if they want to refer to cardiology. That is, as complicated as that is sort of at a, an ideal state.
Sure.
So my question is for you, since you practice in an environment which is essentially completely the opposite of that in many ways, how do you envision, in your scenario of having the ability to get a BAC score in a patient using an AI model, what are the things that you struggle with in terms of what should I do with this information? What is my responsibility to monitor the downstream impact? Should I be giving this information to women or not? Because the science is still new in this, I'm curious to see. I have the luxury of being able to study it, and you actually don't have that luxury because you guys are not plugged in the same way to the health system, the outcome. So I just want to hear your perspective on what you think about deploying something like this.
I greatly appreciate that question, and it really makes me think. And I've been thinking about this during our whole discussion, is that, to be completely frank, I take a very opposite approach to you. And I think we've hinted at, we've had this discussion. I share the same concern of what if a really good idea sits on the shelf. And I have taken, after seeing so many good ideas presented to me, I only respect an idea that can get in front of patients. So my bias is towards action. And instead of, and I really, and I don't want to downplay, I respect and I'm humbled by how much effort you put at launching BAC with minimal disruption. That's commendable. In our enterprise, that's virtually impossible because the nature of 50% of mammography is done in independent diagnostic and testing facilities. You're lucky if you get correct date of birth insurance information of patients. So in these environments, action is key. And so our strategy, my strategy, is to just try to see what works. Because the reality of outpatient medicine is it's messy. There's no centralized EMRs. Everyone has a different PACS systems. We have multiple PACS systems across our enterprise. And we're trying to get the same idea out across different PACS systems. So we learn by doing, by error, and we fail fast. So error is our greatest teacher, right? So we tend to be quicker to deploy and then quicker to figure out from the feedback.
Yeah.
And I see the criticisms of that. I can list out the criticisms of that approach. It can be accused of being reckless, sloppy, fast, but in terms of patients, I think we get the least bad outcomes because at least they get to know that my minimum threshold is patients should get to know. And so we offer these technologies faster, and we will continue to offer them faster so that patients will guide their care.
So let me ask you a follow-up. So what would you say is, if I asked you for a win in this context that you've experienced and a loss, right? What would the win be, and what would the loss or the error that what would the loss or error be that you had to subsequently correct?
Fantastic question. Wins, and so we're going to talk about BAC specifically. Generalizably, there's plenty of answers. I've had lots of wins and losses. In BAC, wins are, I know for a fact, thousands of women in our enterprise have found out they have this finding. And I believe if you just do some back of the napkin math, if even 20% of them have become medically optimized, there is delayed cardiovascular events. We've prevented some heart attacks. And even one for me is good enough. One is worth it for me. So I think that just the adoption, the win for me is the adoption, that patients want this information and they're excited to receive this information. Mm-hmm. So it's when you get patient adoption, that's when I get, my juices get flowing. I get really excited. In terms of loss, yeah, we've had some of those too. There are some providers, radiologists, healthcare practitioners, I haven't been able to win over. Mm-hmm. To your point, you've called it, right? You go too fast, it can backfire.
What are their objections?
They don't understand it. Mm-hmm. It's too new. It is a new piece of information, and healthcare is a high liability field. It's complex. It's stressful. So just the change management, and the way I hear it is just the change management friction. Mm-hmm. They struggle with, and maybe they would do better in a deployment that you have. So I'm not batting 1,000 by any means, and getting anytime you go quickly with the technology, there's speed bumps, there's friction, you scrape your knees, there's complicated scenarios, there's false positives, and we don't always have a playbook for every single false positive. So there is a little bit of backyard football in figuring it out. Mm-hmm. I find that to be fun and enjoyable, and I see the upside of it. I can hear the criticism that it's a little reckless. Right? So I greatly appreciate your strategy. I've learned my own strategy. I don't know that I'm right. It's just what we do.
Yeah.
And it comes with scraping your knees. I want to be honest about that.
So last question is, if you could wave a magic wand and let's say you have a model that works well for 2D and DBT, and let's say you have the evidence to support a given score, pretending a certain risk. Right? Let's say that the evidence we discussed that evidence doesn't necessarily yet exist for DBT. So let's pretend that you have all the data, but still you're operating in the fragmented healthcare system, which you are. So you're not plugged into the EHR. You're not plugged into. You don't necessarily have all the referrals from the primary care providers. Women come in with their own self-referral for mammography. So tell me what your ideal state then is for utilization.
Fantastic question. I'm in this backyard. It's not as structured as I would like. I do think we have to build the solution. And if it's difficult for us, for these patients to get the right downstream care, even with the evidence-based guidelines, if and when they come, we have to build them. We have to build access to cardiac screening. Mm-hmm. I do think that 10 years from now, we should link cardiac screening for women with mammography. BAC, maybe baseline echo, maybe more testing. Look for heart failure, look for arrhythmias. That one point of care, that one time we get to touch the patient when she comes in for a mammogram is precious, and I believe we need to reverse medicine. Instead of having to go see a family practice, get a referral for a cardiologist, go see the cardiologist, then get testing. We should invert that pyramid and do the testing first, because testing's a lot cheaper and easier.
Well, in opportunistic screening, yes.
Yeah.
Right. So opportunistic screening is that rare triple win situation.
Correct.
You know, it's good for the patient, it's good for providers, and it's actually good for payers, right? Yeah. In a fee-for-service healthcare system, that's a rare combination, right? But correct. Opportunistic screening checks those boxes. So yeah, I agree with you. Screen them first because it doesn't cost anything extra. There's no additional radiation exposure to the patient. So screen them, but then it's the job of, I suppose, research labs and labs like myself to figure out, what to do then with that information
correct.
To optimize the care.
Correct. And if we're backlogged, and if let's say we get a national massive, I think there is a massive shortage of cardiologists or preventative cardiologists, we start doing the first steps of their legwork.
Yeah.
We start taking on the first steps of cardiac screening. Yeah. Whatever needs to be done, the outcome is to get these women screened.
Yeah.
Because if we don't do it, nobody else will.
Yeah. Thanks. All right. Appreciate it.
That was fun. That was fun.